All right. Welcome to the Catalyst Way, where we have conversations around unleashing the power of purpose and meaning to fuel transformative change in yourself and for others. Welcome to episode number 18. And in this episode, this will be our fourth try. Yay! And we're going to cover drawing a line in the sand. And it could be professional, personal, but it's thinking about when you have to, when you have to make a decision. I always use the word fish or cut bait. So we're going to kind of talk about, our how we both deal with drawing a line in the sand. So I'll first say, would you like to go first, or would you like for me to go first?
Uh, I think I'll let you get started. Looking forward to this conversation. So let's see what comes out.
All right. So I have we've mentioned before, I've had two recent, when I say recent, within the past, 15 years, lines in the sand. One is when I first started at UNCG, and then one happened when I ended at UNCG. So I'll start with the one I started, and I'll just give a brief rundown. But before I came to UNCG, I was at the College of New Jersey, worked at the College of New Jersey through various positions, had this great position in the School of Business working with this great dean. He basically said, take the ball and run with it. And we built up this program. It was Student Success Program. It was awesome. And he was asked to leave, and they brought in a new guy. And this new dean was the complete opposite. Didn't like me, didn't like what I was doing. And we were dealing with all these situations. And we were so against each other that we ended up getting into a fight, like throwing punches in his office. So imagine the assistant dean and the dean trying to punch each other in the face. Not good.
Oh boy.
That's a line in the sand. So it's like, do I stay in this environment where I'm miserable, or do I pursue something else that's more along the lines of what I want to do? So, make a long story short, got went to a dream certification program, and the facilitator had me write a letter on what I would say to this dean and burn the letter. And right then and there, I'm like, good, I'm done. I'm going to leave. And I applied for a position, ended up getting a position at William and Mary, College of William and Mary, thinking because of William and Mary, it'll be wonderful. Um, and, we make decisions for the right reasons and the wrong reasons. This was a decision for the wrong reason. So I took a position as an assistant dean in the dean of students office, which was not a fit for me, but I wanted it for the prestige of being at William Mary. And then I'm like, you know what? I can't be here either. So I know what I want to do, and I'm going to try to find a position where I can do what I really want to do. So that's where UNCG came in. I said, I'm going to do this work. When I left William and Mary, I didn't have another plan. I just said, I'm just going to go with what we talked about earlier, faith. And I'm going to just have faith to think I'm going to find the right thing. Needless to say, UNCG happened, got to do this work, Life Design Catalyst work, and the rest is history. Fast forward, 14 years later, created this program, done 20 plus of these trainings, got rave reviews, retention rates, graduation rate, everything that you would want to happen happened positively. And then our dean left, and then the associate dean left, and then we got two new people. And in a nutshell, the new associate dean, which was my boss, I asked her, why are we not implementing Life Design Catalyst work across campus? Because we've shown success. And her comment to me was, if you were white, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Wow.
And again, it's like, so do you stay at a place where you're not wanted? Because they were in no way going to implement my work on campus. In fact, they ultimately said, we don't want you to do your work here. So you'll either just have to do academic advising or leave. And again, didn't have anything. I have a mortgage, insurance to pay, health benefits. So I decided instead of trying to stick it out for 5 more years to get full retirement, I'll retire, leave or retire from UNCG, get half the benefits, cover my wife Rebecca's benefits full, and then I'll find a part-time job so I can pay the mortgage. Well, that lasted a year. And then when I met with my financial advisor, he's like, you could just fully retire. So paid off the mortgage, fully retired, and I haven't looked back ever since. Um, but it's interesting how these lines in the sands happen, professionally. And sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith and say, things are going to work out. You just have to like create a plan on how to move forward. So those are two really short stories on where I've had to kind of say, when are you going to fish and cut bait? Because you just can't keep doing what you're doing. So those are really two really quick stories on drawing a line in the sand.
I would say the leap of faith is definitely the scenario. From a professional standpoint, my example would also be along those lines. I coached and have coached soccer in this area for the best part of 30 years. The soccer club that I started with a colleague of mine, we started in 2019. This came about after a series of events leading up to the ultimate decision. So it wasn't one particular incident per se that took place, but rather some occurrences over time where I just wasn't being able to coach the way that I wanted to. It was being in programs where what was more important was player retention and not player development. And I wanted to do more to have players develop because I just happen to think that's what the game should be used for. Let's make sure that not only you develop as a player, but what can be done to develop you as a person. I was finding out that the more I took my perspective down that road, the more pushback I was getting. Also being reflected in the teams that I was given to coach, you just weren't allowed to have the top teams. Those just went to the chosen. You just had guys who were in prominent positions who then had their friends come in and take those teams. So you were overlooked. And even from that standpoint, the teams that you were allowed to coach that they deemed to be the lesser team, the lower teams, you were still given pushback on the way that you were allowed to coach them. Because again, just make sure that they come back and parents write checks again next year and everyone's happy. So all of that just led up to I can sit here and complain and know that it's not going to change, or I can leave and do something different. Or the third option is stay here and shut up. Don't complain because nothing's going to change anyway. So what choice do you want to go with? So for me, it was, after having a couple of discussions, it was, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to start a club. We're going to make this move. And because that was the decision, the leap of faith that came into that was, well, we don't have a home base. Well, where are we going to practice? What are we going to do when you've got so many of the facilities that are being overlooked, or I would say overseen and used by the bigger club that's in town. So they've sort of got their hands on those. So you can't really get to that. So it puts us in a position where we have to be creative, right? Which is typically what happens when you do take a leap of faith. You're not sure how this is going to pan out because if you could see all of that, then you wouldn't need faith anyway. So we're asking questions and we're exploring all kinds of different avenues. Long story short, we end up at a private school. We are coaching there, which then gives us the space that we need to start having practices, which allows us to then start the club, grow the club into what it is today. It, ever since then, has grown, it has flourished. It's one of those things where when you do actually take the leap of faith, you look back on it and ask yourself, why did I wait so long? Right? What was I worried about? What was I scared of? However, that's never your view in that moment. You are genuinely trying to figure out, what is this going to look like? So it has been a journey that not only transformed me, but just watching everyone else who has come through it, because it's now a dream realized, it's having so much more impact than I ever thought it would or dreamed it would. I just knew that where I was not where I wanted to be, and I needed out. And that was what needed to be done at that moment to get out. So that's my story on my line in the sand and what it took for me to cross that line.
And we work with a lot of people who have that same interest. It's like, I want to do this thing, but I can't leave what I'm doing. So, what do you think for you was the what was the tipping point to get you to move from comfort and safety to uncomfortable and not knowing? Like, what was the tipping point for you?
I think the tipping point was sort of what I referenced earlier. It was, you either have to stay and be quiet or change and go, because you can't stay and complain. Like, you don't get to do that. All right. That's not an option, because I was doing that and realized that that wasn't the move to make. Right. Which I think many people are in that same position, right? You're in a position that you don't like. You do want out. You want something different. And I don't think as much time is spent on what you could do to move forward when you are spending time complaining. And I don't know that it serves any purpose to attempt to draw that line and then look at the line while complaining about the present condition. It's not going to change, so why complain about it?
Well, and so a lot of my decisions, when you think about the line in the sand and having to decide, do I stay or do I go? A lot of my decisions were financial, because when I left college in New Jersey and William Mary, I mean, I was literally in three different jobs, 3 years in a row. And when I left college in New Jersey, I was paid well. And then I go to William Mary and I'm paid well as assistant deans. And then I take a lesser position at UNC Greensboro to really do the work I really want to do. There's a lot of people out there who are in places where they don't like to be, but because of financial reasons, they can't leave. So, I wonder, what can they do to ease that transition? So, make the line, instead of this hard-nosed line, maybe make it a little more blurry so it makes the decision easier. What do you think about that?
Is is there anything that you could be doing to explore this endeavor, this option that you would like to move into that will get you across this line? Right? I don't think everything has to be an all or nothing, that it's got to be a complete standstill. There's a great video that we reference sometimes in the workshops, Steve Tomlinson, like, bend it till it breaks, right? Is there something you can do that helps you explore this pathway that you're looking at? Can you venture off into this while you are still on your job that will maybe even give you some type of peace and help with the restlessness and the uneasiness while you're in your present condition, rather than know that you are there for financial reasons and treat yourself as though all is lost. I don't think it's an all or nothing proposition.
But I bet most people see it as an all or nothing proposition when they're thinking about it.
And that is the dilemma, right? That's the cause for concern, that you don't need to look at it that way. It's not a it's not a my life is over moment for you by any means, right? Even though it's, I got to get up and go back to this job again, and I really don't want to. Right. So now what can you do to get out? Because the other scenario would be, if I complain enough and I'm miserable enough, what if the job just decides to get rid of me anyway? Now what do I do?
Right, right. Well, and it's funny because for me, it always went back to, so when I was thinking about leaving from William and Mary and going to UNCG, it's when I first started doing values. And I did the values activity. And when I did the values activity, I realized, my number one value was fitness and health and exercise. My number two was wisdom, purpose. And my number three was personal growth and development. And until I knew that, it was hard to figure out what I want to do. But when I knew that and I was clear about that, everything became easier. So I knew that if I'm going to take this leap, if I'm going to go to my next thing, I have to be able to do these things. If I can't do these things, I don't want to go. And I don't think a lot of people have that in their toolbox of, who am I? What matters to me? And how can I start implementing little pieces of that along the way so that if I'm going to have to make this transition, it'll be easier. So the line doesn't have to be so cut and dry. It could be more of a, a bigger line, so to speak.
No,
Um,
I think you bring up an interesting point, because if this is an individual who doesn't know what their values are or what you hold dear, and you're on a job in a position where you've been there for any length of time and you are good at what you do, you're effective at it, and the financial reward is good enough to cover everything that you're dealing with in your life at the moment, to now walk away from that and not know what you're walking away from it for just takes you down the path of, you're just trying to find another job, right? And it's probably going to be based on what you're doing now or something similar, because that's all you know to identify with. Because again, we're not having this conversation about where your values lie. So even if you were leaving for a little less money, the reward would be that you are now in a place where you have your peace, which you can't put a financial tag on.
right. Gallup says, 67% of people are either not engaged or completely disengaged at work. So most people are just going from job to job to job, but they're not happy. So, and I was the same way, you go from one place to another and you go for what you think it might provide, and then it doesn't give you what you're really looking for. And it's like, what do you do? But, I think we're fortunate that we've been able to get to where we are, um, being uncomfortable and doing what we really want to do. And our hope is that we can help other people kind of think about who they are, how they want to contribute to the world, being their best self, and how we can help in that process. And that's what gets us up every morning. Which is why we do the workshops and why we really think about, how can we not only impact the world ourselves, but how can we help other people impact the world the way we do? Um, which is why Life Design, the Catalyst way, Life Design Catalyst work is just like so rewarding for so many people, including ourselves. So this work helps with that time when you have to draw the line in the sand.
And that line in the sand is something that you want to look at as allowing you to be proactive rather than reactive, right? And instead of being in that situation where, you know, no, you didn't actually draw the line in the sand, a situation sort of provoked you having to now make a choice right then and there, whether you like it or not, as opposed to, I've drawn this line. I know why this matters to me, and I'm gradually working my way towards it so that when it does happen, it's, I'm taking a leap of faith on my own terms.
Right. Right. So, and I think won't say that we'll have to draw another line in the sand in 2026, but I do know that we'll be reframing a lot of what we do in 2026. But it'll be on our terms and not on somebody else's terms. So that's a good thing, is that we've gotten to the point where, it'll be uncomfortable. There'll be definitely some discomfort, but not anything we can't handle, because it won't be any worse than what we've dealt with in the past.
I
So,
think it's the old adage, right? Do one thing every day that scares you. Easier said than done, but it's sort of where you want to go.
well, how about do one thing every month that scares you? How about
Sure,
every day?
sure,
Every day could be a little stressful, or even once a week.
exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to do it every day. That's
Right.
too much. So, do you have anything else you want to add before we call it a day today?
Work on drawing that line.
Yep.
Yes,
And take the
yes,
leap of faith.
please.
Yep. All
You can
right.
do it.
Well, thank you for the chat.
Absolutely.
We'll
Bye
see
for
you next
now.
we'll see you next time. Take care.